Hello, everybody. Michael Silber here with the next episode in our series of interviews with industry thought leaders. Today, we're really fortunate to have with us Ruchika Deora, who is a strategic marketing manager for CitiPower, Powercor, and United Energy, who are these are distribution companies in Victoria. Welcome.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Yeah, I'd like to start off, you and I have talked in the past, we've been talking a lot about fundamental changes in the power sector, power and utility sector. Can you talk a little bit about what you see as fundamental changes that are directly and indirectly related to the current pandemic crisis?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we internally have done quite a bit of assessment and have been very considered about. You know, as we know, this is unprecedented is the overused word, but you know, when it's so applicable, I think in businesses in all industries are really grappling with how they maintain and adjust their operations in this kind of environment. And it's no different for essential services like network service providers and some utilities. We are classified as essential services, as you can imagine, and we've maintained our operations throughout this. So for us, a lot of the direct challenges for us have been, okay, so we've got a workforce of roughly 2,000 folks, and that's both in the office and in the field. So how do we protect them while maintaining the safety and reliability of electricity for the communities that we service? And so those have been, unique challenges. I think, all businesses have business contingency plans that they rely on. And most of those, I think, are structured in ways that are sort of, emergency and crisis communications and functions can be implemented, but now they're being sort of extended, right? So this is an ongoing situation that's evolving rapidly, that it requires a lot of collaboration with other network distribution companies as well as the government. And then that, also requires internal coordination, communication around safety and expectations for your employees. So all of those things have been, issues that we've been assessing internally and externally, our communications with customers. Some of the direct impacts have been, we've had staggered start times for our crews in the field to make sure we're minimizing contact. The mandates, much like everyone else that has been, affected by this, is if you can work at home, if it's not critically required for you to be in the office, then you should be working from home, which then puts an enormous strain operationally on, the technology associated with enabling working from home in the most efficient manners. The customer communications we found, especially when this particularly, started to come to a head here in Australia and in Victoria, the customer communications we found, we don't have broad mass customer communications that go out to customers on a regular basis. The primary point of interaction for customers is their retailer, not necessarily their distribution company. But we've partnered, with other distribution companies, with our regulator and with our industry organization, Energy Networks Australia, to provide relief packages to both end-use residential consumers and small and medium-sized businesses through their retailers. So what's the most efficient way and how do we actually communicate those have all been, things that we've frankly grappled with. But I think we've done a really great job, and it's commendation to the teams that have been associated with that. The thing that's indirectly come out of this, which has been really interesting, is an extension of that. And so while we've been reactionary in some way, in making sure that our operations can continue and under the auspice of safety and security and reliability, we've actually had the opportunity to learn a lot and to embed a lot of efficiencies. So things like planned and unplanned outage management, the number of customers that are off supply, how can really push our operations to minimize and mitigate the impacts as much as possible, because there are so many people that are working from home and undergoing isolation. So really just driving those efficiencies to make sure that we're minimizing customer impacts have allowed us to, the indirect consequence of that is we've actually become better at planning and making sure that we are taking the customer into account when we try to look for network management solutions.
Yeah, you're talking, you spoke a lot in that about people working from home. Has there been changes in the load curve, and has electrical consumption shifted as a result of the crisis?
Yeah, that's a really interesting one as well. I mean, you know, our head office is located in the city, in the CBD in Melbourne, and initially when this occurred, you know, anecdotally and sort of indicatively, I think we all felt like, well, certainly there's going to be a decline in consumption overall because you're seeing everyone move from these high consumption buildings and operations, whether they're commercial or industrial, to their residential homes. What we've actually seen is almost a like for like shift from you know, the CBD and urban centers to suburban and residential load. So we haven't seen a net decline in actual consumption. Exactly as you mentioned, we've just seen a shift from commercial and industrial over to residential.
Does any of this have impact on network management for the long term, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think who has the crystal ball, right? I mean, I think what we're doing is we're absolutely looking at what that could mean if this type of situation continues into the summer, what that could mean if this type of situation continues moving forward, because as you mentioned, network planning is about forecasting where the load is and then what your investment strategy is associated with that forecasting. And so if you see a general, you know, shift in economic conditions, whether it's investment in commercial, industrial, or residential load use, it would absolutely have an impact in planning. The question becomes, you know, does stage 4 lockdown get implemented? Does stage 3 get extended? Or do we sort of start to go back to a slightly, you know, revised normal in October, which means everyone's, you know, traveling back and forth from home and work? So we definitely are looking at all of those contingencies to see how we can best manage that for customers.
You know, prior to the crisis, you know, there was lots and lots of discussion about demand response, which is, of course, critically important. Has the approach to demand response changed because of the crisis? And in general, how has customer engagement changed because of as a response to demand response?
So with demand response for United Energy has been a business as usual network management solution for several years now. And so we'll continue that for this summer, our Summer Saver program for United Energy. You know, every year we refine our consumer engagement models by learning on, you know, from what we've learned the previous year in terms of how customers like to be communicated with, how often, you know, what their level of interest and engagement is on this. So, you know, what we learned from last year is that, you know, customers want to be engaged with early and often, and that their participation in behavioral demand response programs is high when you have the right, you know, product and service offering and the right value proposition for them to say, okay, we'll notify you 3 times when an event is coming up, and we're compensating you a fair price per kilowatt hour reduction. So yep, demand response is absolutely something that we're can continue into this year. On the CitiPower and Powercor side, they've got the Energy Partner Program, and that program is again going ahead this year. That's a direct load control program that involves direct load control of air conditioning devices via a Sensibo, and that's being expanded, and we're using that again this year. I think the interesting thing for me as a marketing professional and the interesting unknown is the positioning of demand response for the summer and the level of resilience that people are going to have and what that means for preparation for those programs. So what I mean by that is, you know, when it's hot, you have to have a pretty compelling value proposition to get people to turn down their air conditioning or make it warmer in their home, right? Or to, you know, leave their house or to do whatever it is the call to action is for participation in the demand response program. And sometimes it's minor. Sometimes people don't even notice. There's no actual discomfort, but there's still a call to action. And my impression is that generally the level of resilience that people have is getting low, right? We're all going through a hard time, and we all have the pressures of, perhaps homeschooling or, working from home and having the kids at home, and your resilience to change and to even what can be perceived as moderately discomfort through demand response programs can be low. So what does that mean for us as a network distribution company that's trying to manage the network during the summer? I think that means that we need to, get in early. We need to do a lot of preparation for customers so that they know that this is, another way that they can contribute to supporting the community by helping manage the network. Mm-hmm. We need to make sure, again, that we've got the right proposition for customers so that they feel like they're being compensated adequately for this contribution. And early and often communication and transparency is probably, some of the tactics that we'll employ. And that's starting pretty soon.
You've kind of answered my next question, but maybe you can elaborate a little bit. What do companies, distribution companies like yours have to do to manage customer expectations? What do they have to change and improve at?
Yeah, so these are all great questions. What we're seeing, right, is as technology commercializes and evolves and disrupts the electricity sector, end-use energy consumers are able to make independent purchasing decisions, that they view as being similar to purchasing a car or a hot tub or, any other type of consumable or white good. And I'm speaking specifically of things like solar and electric vehicles and batteries that have an impact on the operations of networks. So whereby in the past, it really was okay for networks to operate behind the scenes and ensure a certain level of reliable, stable power quality and power supply, more and more as customers make these purchasing decisions, it's having a material impact on the operations of the networks, whether or not they want to export or whether they want to store or trade or whatever the case may be. So it's incumbent upon us to establish a relationship with the customer and the consumer, again, end-use consumer and installers and original equipment manufacturers, so that as an industry we can work collaboratively to make sure that everyone has access, or the majority of people have access to the type of energy choices that they want to make, which means that if you as a consumer decide to purchase solar and you want to export on your rooftop, you can do that without negatively impacting the power quality of somebody else on your street.
So with all of that said, how do companies such as yours, what kind of skill sets do you look for in new hires as you focus both on customer expectations and network management?
Yeah, well, I think, for ours, we've gone through some pretty significant changes in the past. It's only been like 6 to 8 months where we restructured our customer services group and have created a head of customer experience. We've created people that work in that group and associated with that group that have more digital skills, that have more customer skills that are more commercial, if you will, as opposed to customer and account management skills. And I think problem solving and a customer focused, or what we call human-centered design in the business, understanding consumer experience and the difference between consumer experience, user interface, and customer value proposition, those get thrown around quite a bit, interchangeably sometimes, and they're not. And so it's important to be able to, I think, embed in businesses that are going through this transformation of a network-oriented organization to, incorporating slowly but surely more customer-centric ideologies into their decision-making, that they've got the people there that can help guide them and help take them on a step-by-step journey into that operating model. And what that means is digital skills, that means UX skills, that means UI skills, and that just frankly means commercial skills, where you think about what's the value proposition for why we're doing this. You know, because you can build the most amazing technological advancements, but if nobody comes to you to use them, it doesn't matter, right?
Mm. Ruchika, as always, when I speak with you, I come away with lots of new insights. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate your participation on the Enlit Australia Advisory Board, and look forward to hearing you speak at our live conference March 10th and 11th in Melbourne next year.
Yeah, really looking forward to it, Michael, and it's always a pleasure as well. So thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. We'll talk soon.